Work in refugee camps in conflict contexts. That has been my work for the past basically 15 years. What directed my interest? Basically chance. Now, I wish I could have a more heroic story or more spiritual one, but actually I was in Madrid, happily working in the world of the publishing houses. I'm a man of books. I love books and I love my work. But it's true that forever, or since I can remember, I've been also involved in work that has in social work or work related to social justice. Since I was very young, I started volunteering and I worked in places like Chile, where I learned that you have to be involved with those that have less. And that had been part of my life basically forever. And at some point, I was asked by a friend, by a person that I knew, to go to work in there had been a war between Liberia and Guinea-Conakry, completely unreported. And I was asked to leave everything and go there. And what was supposed to be a few months has turned out to be my life. But basically, it was sheer chance. Well, that was particularly complicated because back then Liberia was completely in war, and the border between Guinea and Liberia, the area where, by the way, now it was back in the news last year because of Ebola. The Ebola outbreak was around there. It was an incredibly violent place, and you had two rebel groups based in Guinea-Conakry. So you had to deal with having to supply assistance, support. First it was food, then we were doing house reconstruction, and then we went on to work in refugee camps through educational projects, vocational training, primary education. But violence was security was a major issue, and it has been all along the way. Working with in conflict zones, we are faced with the problem of security. So you have basically, I think that you have two types of issues and problems in every humanitarian response. The first one are the technical ones. So we had incredibly logistical problems. Logistics was a nightmare because we had to bring food for 30,000 people who were living in scattered areas in the forest, in the deep forest, and taking rice and palm oil there was incredibly challenging. And then starting work in refugee camps was also very, very complicated. So there are the technical issues. For me, the most challenging ones, or the most problematic ones, are the ethical ones. The ones related to what amount of assistance does a person need, and at what point your assistance turns out to create dependency. And that's an issue that it goes far beyond any technical problem, but it's far deeper. And I don't think that we put enough effort into thinking of those things. And the second one is, for me, it's even more disturbing, is are we helping those people to really go back to their normal life? Are we having any impact in resolving the root causes of why they are there? Or are we just being fig leaves or makeup so that the international community can look elsewhere? And for me, throughout these 15 years, that has been what has really weighed in my heart, is the fact that I'm never sure if we are actually doing what those people need. Well, I started my work in the Liberian-Guinean border, and I worked for many years, for 5 years, in that was Guinea-Conakry, Liberia, the northwestern part of Sierra Leone. We had projects there, and Ivory Coast. In the first decade of this century, the West Africa, that area of West Africa, was really riddled by conflict. Things improved, and then I went on to work in the Sudanese-Chadian border. I worked there for a long time. It's the western part of Sudan. It's called Darfur, In Darfur, basically, there's been a war since 2003. That's not over yet. And for years, we still have 12 refugee camps in eastern Chad, and a quarter of a million of IDPs, internally displaced people. So I border between Sudan and Chad with a primary education project. And then I went on to work in Ethiopia, in the border between Ethiopia and Somalia. Following the 2011 drought and the war in Somalia, there was a massive movement of population towards northern Kenya and towards southern Ethiopia. So we opened the camps there, and I worked there for a long time, setting up educational projects and youth programs. And then my last work has been in Central African Republic, again starting schools, primary education and early childhood care for IDPs, for internally in the Central African Republic. I think that education is important in every case, and I tell you what I've seen working in refugee camps. One of the main issues in refugee camps is that people live. How can I put it? Basically, every person works and lives in three tenses, in three verbal tenses: past, present, and future. And we have, all of us have a past. We are doing something now, and what we're doing now, we project it to the future. We imagine the future. We are working towards what we want to become. What happens with refugees is that the past is overweight. Something horrible has happened in the past that obliged people to move, to leave their lives behind, their normalcy behind, and that is it's a traumatic event that really has a grip on the life of people, and the present becomes ever present, because you have to survive, and surviving in refugee camps, it's difficult, and the day-by-day life, it really holds you down and makes you be concerned about the present. And in this life, the future fades away. The future is a verbal tense that it's forgotten. It doesn't apply anymore. And that is, it's taking away something essential for human beings, which is imagining, creating for the future. And I think that the only way to do this in refugee camps, in refugee settings, is education. Education for the children, for the youngsters. It opens a window to the future. Because all the rest, the food, you eat it there, the water, you drink it there, the shelter goes, disappears as soon as you move on. But education stays and builds on the future. And I'm very lucky to have worked for many years in education emergencies, because you feel that you are working not just on surviving, but on living, which is what human beings were entitled to do. I mean, education is a way of addressing root causes. If you focus on addressing root causes, education as such is not necessarily part of the solution. It is in the sense that educated people tend to have a wider view of life and the world, and to be able to respond to major challenges, to bigger challenges. But I don't think that it should only be in them the part of solving the issue. If you think about education as solving the equation, it's we educate you, you solve the problem. But these are problems that are bigger than refugees, that they go beyond their capacity to answer them. And this is where the international community, and we are tools, and when I say we, I talk about the humanitarian system. We are tools of the humanitarian, of the world, of the international community. These are wealthy countries and wealthy donors that put money on us so that we can help people. And in that chain, I'm never sure if we are serving the people or we are saving the donors? And this is a major question that for too long we haven't wanted to look at it because it was just convenient. And don't get me wrong, helping people in need, it's not only that it makes sense, it's a human imperative. But I think it's insufficient. We have to go beyond, we have to find a way of actually helping them not to suffer in the first place and not to carrying on suffering. I've worked for years in conflicts and in contexts that just go on and on and on. The situation in Somalia, the situation in the Central African Republic. Last week I came back from, not last week, 3 days ago, I came back from Jordan, where there are 700,000 Syrian refugees that have been there for 5 years. I mean, we keep on assisting them in camps, outside camps, but are we doing anything? Is our voice being heard, searching for a solution? And it is a very profound ethical issue. And my personal view is that we should completely change the way we approach humanitarian responses. And the assistance should be part of the response, not the response. Coordination is a major challenge because people that watch the news and see us working think that we live in a world in which humanitarian organizations, the UN, the Red Cross, the NGOs, we live some sort of epiphany of solidarity and help, which is not the case. It's a very complex. I'm not sure if you want to put this in your exhibition, but it's a very complex, not always functional, and certainly not always cheerful and embracing system. It's competitive, and coordination is very complex. The actors are very different. You have from state actors, donor agencies, independent NGOs with incredibly different ideological, religious backgrounds. More and more you're having donors from countries that before were not there, say Turkey, India, China, Saudi Arabia. How do you put all this together? It's not easy. I don't want to sound too critical, because what we have to know at the end of the day is that for the first time in history, if a natural disaster occurs or a conflict occurs, and they occur all the time, there is a system in place to assist the people who flee, the people who suffer. And it's a fairly well organized system that allows people to eat, drink, have a shelter, and have some sort of dignity. Is it as functional as it should? No. Is it capable of helping people to get back on their feet and live a life beyond pure assistance? No. So we have to make it better. And as I said before, I think that we are very good at providing assistance. Good, I wouldn't say very good, but certainly decent. We are not good at addressing the suffering of the people. I have a friend who likes to say that we are not humanitarian workers, we are aid managers. I think it's a lucid, nobody says this. You will not read this in any guideline or handbook. But at the end of the day, what we basically do is we take the aid, the money from donors, and we use it to provide assistance to refugees and internally displaced people. That's the basic idea. At the end of the day, the term humanitarian, I think, is valid if we provide that assistance according to humanitarian principles. And that is where the challenge comes. There are 4 humanitarian principles widely accepted. humanity, neutrality, independence, and impartiality. And if we are able of doing that, if we are really independent, if we are impartial in the way that we distribute food, if we are neutral, not in the sense of not thinking about who causes the problems, but not getting engaged in one of the sides, which is very different. And if we provide assistance to people based on their needs, then we are humanitarian organizations. If not, we are just simply aid managers. And there is a massive gap. I think that there are more and more aid managers. I think that all the people that work on my field feel that we are not sure how humanitarian our assistance is, or how relevant, and not how relevant, how present the humanitarian principles are. Oh, very simple. You are starting a technical career. Assistance aid, which is what we do basically, is a technical career. We all receive money to the projects. Go beyond that. Focus on not having to do it. Focus on becoming irrelevant. Focus on being unemployed. That's my my advice. Until then, we are basically failing.